Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, I want to talk about the ability to predict the future as the leader. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning or good evening, wherever you are at. I am Kale Houser, the host of the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I want to talk about, in a word, forethought. The ability to see and predict the future by using forethought, right? Thinking ahead of something before it happens. So as a leader, this is one of our primary missions, one of our primary responsibilities as the leader of our organization. We're the ones who think ahead and base the actions now in order to ideally achieve those results that we've thought about, right? And that all relates into goals and planning and things of that nature, but it starts at its most basic level of the ability to see the future and what you want that future to look like. And then we move into other areas such as how do we implement actions now to get to that future, whether it be a goal, a target, avoid something in the future. That certainly is a valid response, but it all requires forethought. And that's kind of the base level as a leader. Now, I'm going to use kind of an example here because it is very lacking in the common workplace, right? And leaders certainly have, it's not uncommon that they'll have goals for the organization, goals for the business. You have financial targets, you have number of customers that you've gained, accounts that you've serviced, clients that you've won cases for, pizzas that have been delivered, whatever your metric is that you use to measure success and growth. Certainly any business has goals for that. But what I'm talking about is not only that for the organization, but for the individuals as well. And an example of this, or really a failed example of this is, so in the military, which is, my background, so I'll be drawing a lot from that for examples. After you've served in the military, if anything happens to you, because while you're in the military, even though your work hours, quote unquote work hours, may be, a typical Monday through Friday, or you may work shift work, whatever the case may be, but you're on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Okay, even when you're on leave, you can be recalled in national emergencies and things of that nature. Okay, so that's an important fact to understand if you did not know that already about the military. And as such, when military members get injured, whether it is actually related to the job they're doing in the military, right? Like they're a paratrooper and they broke their leg when they landed, or something tragic happens and they get injured or sick or something while doing their job, but also outside of their job. So maybe they're camping or hiking in the woods and they break their leg, or they have to have surgery or a hip replacement because they slipped and fell, scraping the ice off their driveway, whatever the case may be. That is all what's called service-connected injuries because it happened while you were in the service, okay? And that comes into play as you get out of the service, whether you did your 4 or 6 or 10 years or 15 years, or you made it the full 20 to retirement, which separate topic, isn't really a thing anymore because the military, the DoD, has moved to a more like 401k type retirement versus a 20-year pension retirement. But you can come to the end of your service time and you apply for the Veterans Administration disability claim, right? So you go through this whole process. I won't get too much into it, but the nuts and bolts of it is they look at all of your military records, medical records, and they say, okay, you had a broken leg here and now your knee is jacked up, or because you were an infantryman or a mountain, the mountaineering guys, your back is completely screwed up and it's service related, so we're going to give you an X percentage of disability for basically the rest of your life potentially, as long as it goes unhealed or unfixed. And there's a whole process for that, but it impacts you financially for the rest of your life. And it could also qualify you for healthcare, continued healthcare, medical care through the VA system. So this is an important thing. However, one thing that's not really articulated, and certainly was never articulated very well to me, because the preponderance of the military is made up of young men and young women. They're the top of their world. They're in typically peak physical shape, and we're proud, We don't want doctors to tell us what to do or what not to do. And we certainly don't want to tell doctors what's wrong with us for fear of maybe losing your flight status or losing your clearance or losing access to whatever that job is that you really enjoy, that having an injury may impact, especially if it's a serious injury, okay? And it could have serious consequences, even a medical discharge. But there is a balance between that of making sure that all those items get documented in your records for the impact later. And this has certainly happened to me. There are things that happened to me in the military that I just didn't talk to my doctor about because I didn't want to impact, whether it be pre-deployment training. I jacked up my wrist pretty bad because I took a fall in full gear and kit. So I came down with many more pounds than just my body right on my wrist, and I still have wrist pain. But because it was pre-deployment and going on a year tour, I didn't really say anything and I just let it go and I dealt with the pain. It wasn't debilitating, but it's certainly there and prevented me from being able to lift a lot of things. But because I didn't do that, now I'm fighting with the VA to try to figure out and get care for it, right? Because they're like, oh, this isn't service related. But the point being, I never had anyone that came along and said, hey, Kale, I know this isn't a big deal to you right now, but in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, this is going to be a big deal. You need to make sure when you get sick, when you have an injury, whether it be to your knee or to your back, or you've got these, carpal tunnel, whatever the case may be, pick your poison, you need to make sure you talk to your doctor about it and it gets put in your medical records for your military service so that when it comes time to get out, the VA has something to go back on and they can make an informed decision versus just saying like, yeah, I had this injury. I didn't want to tell anyone about it because I didn't want to screw up. I wanted to serve my country and do my duty and do the deployment. And I knew if I came with this, it may impact my ability to do so. Or somebody may say, oh, you're not fit to deploy, right? So there's that balance. And I will certainly am not trying to make a scapegoat of myself. It is totally my fault. And maybe err on the side of bravado with, I can handle the pain and just push through deployment. Versus otherwise, right? You can make cases on either side for that. But that isn't really the intent of this podcast right now. The intent is none of my leaders came to me, or even throughout my career as I had different leaders that said, hey, eventually you're going to get out of the military and you want these in your records because it is such a critical part and it impacts you financially in the future. Okay. Had they done that, whether, every 5 years or even as I went through a new commanders or different phases of my career, it would have been great reminders because they're the ones that I was looking to have the forethought when I didn't have it, especially as a younger man when I first joined the military. And I see this all the time, and I saw this all the time, and it was something that I tried to reinforce when I was given command of, hey, especially if I saw somebody get hurt, like make sure you go to the doctor and you tell them about this and it's documented in your records because it may not be a big deal now. Maybe that fall on your wrist or your elbow, sure, it hurts a little bit, but maybe in 5 years it becomes a legitimate problem that you're having issues with. You just don't know, and you're better off documenting it. And that's what I'm talking about with, as a leader, we are the trusted ones. We are supposedly the ones with the experience and the ability to see the future enough to not only warn people about what is coming, but also prepare them for that. Okay, and in this instance, I'm talking about preparing them for your medical records and that eventual discharge from the military. But how this comes to your organization is having not only that forethought of, all right, these are our income projections. These are our hiring projections. We need to hire this many people. We need to grow by this percentage. We think the market's going to do this or that, this many clients. You need to look at your individuals that you're leading. How do you as the leader create the forethought for them on their behalf? Because you care about them. You're the one that is their advocate, whether it be in your company, like, hey, young John, you eventually want to be a sales manager. You just came on with us as a young salesman, whether it be in the car industry or anything else that you're selling products directly to a customer. These are the things that you need to do, right? Not necessarily mapping out a plan for them, but at least making them aware of how to, meet some of those minimum boxes that you need to see in order to make them have a future in your company and be promotable, if that is something that's interested to them. And even if it's not, you can say, hey, this may not be in your wheelhouse right now as something you're considering, but while you're doing these other things, definitely focus on that, right? Whether it be education that they have time for now that they won't have time for later. Okay, so does that make sense that as the leader, you not only need the forethought to handle your organization as a whole, but more specifically your people that you're in charge of, because they're looking to you to be that expert, to have that experience. And honestly, if you're finding that you don't have that experience, that you're not able to advise your employees or the people that work for you or under you, you need to get it. That is your job as the leader, whether you're the business owner, and you may be a brand new business owner that really doesn't know these types of things. This is all new to you. And that's also kind of why I'm here, is to help you out, to give you that voice of a little bit of guidance and thinking about things that maybe you hadn't thought about before. Okay, so this is me telling you, you need to get that forethought. You need to start putting, if they're not already in your daily activities and thinking and how to groom and advise your employees or the people that you lead or supervise, you need to start finding the resources to do that, okay? Whether you're a military commander, and certainly talk to your other commanders, but if you're finding that they don't know, you need to talk to friends, you need to talk to fellow commanders, people that have done that. Read books. There are certainly no lack of leadership books out there that provide phenomenal advice and abilities to how to groom employees and how to advise employees as they're coming up. All right, so that was just a quick down and dirty about forethought, really the ability to see the future, not only for your organization but for your employees. Thank you so much again for spending your time with me today. I super appreciate it. Drop me a line at kalehouserleadership.com if you have any questions, concerns. I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. I'm always happy to hear from you, and feedback is always welcome, no matter what it is. Hey, have a great afternoon, no matter where you're at in the world. Bye.